All right. Well, it was an interesting Saturday evening in combat sports. Uh, the high spot, UFC Vegas 45 went down from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. The event was headlined by a UFC heavyweight bout between UFC heavyweight title challenger Derek Lewis and number 7th ranked Chris Daukaus. Lewis cashed as the plus 128 underdog, knocking out Daukaus early in the first round. And then the co-main event, a welterweight bout between the two-time title challenger Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He faced number 10 ranked Belal Muhammad, and Belal Muhammad defeated Wonderboy by way of decision, cashing as a plus 195 underdog. But the most memorable moment of the night, in a very easily forgettable fight over in another combat sport, a complete blasphemy occurred in boxing as Jake Paul viciously knocked out Tyron Woodley in their pro boxing rematch, shocking the MMA world and, quite frankly, shocking a lot of people outside of the combat sports world as well. So we're going to talk about it as well. It's another late night edition of the Combat Odds post show, and I guess the last edition of 2021. So a big thank you for being here. Big thanks to Liam. Liam Picks Fights for staying up and doing this with me. I know, it's not easy, but it's a late night show, so this is what we do. And yeah, please like and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and follow along on Twitter. Both of us, Almac Odds and Liam Picks Fights. Liam, how's it going? And how was your betting night?
Almac, it's going fantastic, man. It's 4:23 in the East over here, but we're riding for the people because want to talk about these fights and a lot of great action. Honestly, I thought it was one of the better UFC fight nights of the year in terms of how it played out. I thought on paper it had the potential to do that. Expecting over on the over under 7 fights out of 14 and inside the distance. That's what I took personally going into this card. Somebody asked me on Twitter, you think it's going to go over or under 7 finishes? I said over, and we did indeed hit that. Came close on a couple long distance fight don't go parlays as well. Lost it on the Lemos Hill fight. So close, tempting at plus money. But either way, it was a great night of fights. A lot of fights ended inside the distance. And, the knockout that everybody's going to be talking about at the water cooler will have nothing to do with the UFC at all, despite Derek Lewis turning in another first-round classic in his catalog. But yeah, no, the night belongs to the problem child, Jake Paul. Cleveland, stand up, baby. He done it again.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And again, apart from that, like this, we like to highlight boxing here as well. And then, on the other channel, we were getting really into the freak show fights, and it's just turned into a complete train wreck. And the train wreck went on, and I'm here to talk about it. But yeah, let's talk about some MMA first, because this was pretty decent. As you said, 10 of the 13 fights did not go the distance. We had 10 finishes. If you bet fight goes the distance, no, and all 13 fights, you cashed for 6.76 units. And the same amount, the favorite cashed in 10 of the 13 fights. I guess Derek Lewis, Belal Muhammad, and who was the other one? Melissa Gatto were the 3 underdogs. And apart from that, we had just 10 favorites across the board. If you bet on the favorite in every single fight, $100 better returned $225. So a very a chalk night, even though we had 2 dogs come through in the main and co-main. And then, just before we get into it, since this is the last UFC fight, last UFC card of the year, I'm just going to go over the 2021 betting trends. So based on my numbers, there might be some fights missing because we had some no contest, and I counted some of them and I didn't count others. But based on my numbers, there was 509 fights in the UFC in 2021. The favorite won 327 of them, a 65.7 rate, 327, 171, and 10. And even with that decent winning rate. It did not turn a profit. Minus 4.6 units on the money line if you bet every single favorite. But fight goes the distance, yes, was the most profitable of the props that I track, and it ended the year 18.9 units profit, 257, 247, and 5 across 509 fights, and the over 300, 204, and 5 for plus 5.4 units profit. And then the coin flip favorite 87, 72, and 5. Both the coin flip favorite and the dog were on the negative. And yeah, that's 2021. Basically, I'm going to continue to track 2020, the trends that I usually track through 2021 into 2022. So that's just basically a wrap for that as far as the 2021 betting trends. But yeah, let's get into the first fight of the main card. Cub Swanson defeated Darren Elkins. Swanson cashed at minus 160 on the money line. First round KO, a wheel kick and punches, basically. Swanson by TKO plus 300, 3-1 odds. Inside the distance plus 260. The under cashed at plus 160. Fight goes the distance, no, plus 130. And yeah, what did you think about this one? What did you have, Liam?
Yeah, so this was a great fight in terms of my betting night. A lot of my night was going to be predicated on the outcome of this fight. I had 3 units on Cub Swanson on the money line. That was a late ad. My man Chance Wagers, I see in the comments as well, says Cub Swanson is my hero. And dude, Cub Swanson came through for us big time. Was also on the fight not to go the distance at plus money. Like you mentioned, this was a fight I was looking at for Fight Doesn't Go from the second it was announced. And then on top of that, I was on Cub by KO, 1.75 units at plus 300. So big win for me there. Big part of my winning night tonight was Cub Swanson coming through. And, when I I actually had a bet on Darren Elkins to start this week at plus 185, and I cashed it out when I rewatched the tape. I bet it based on my memory. I'm like, Cub's gotten caught in a bunch of subs. Darren might be able to outlast him and then find a sub. And then I went back and watched the Pineda fight, and he was so sharp there, and his takedown defense was on point. And I thought that he measured his shots and beat the shit out of that guy and really hurt him. And I thought that he did the same in this fight, and that's what I was expecting. Darren Elkins almost got knocked out by Derek Minner from the top position with elbows. Derek Minner is not the offensive threat that Cub Swanson is. And Cub Swanson, he just showed it off. At his best, he picks beautiful violence in sequential order and ruins people, and he's done it his whole career. So, big plus money number on the KO. And I got to shout out Just Win Baby. He's the number 1 bettor on Bet MMA. When I had mentioned to him that I played Elkins, he was like, I'm on Cub by KO, just so you know. I looked into it further, and I was like, oh, he's right. Sometimes when you go based off memory, you'll forget things. I thought that it was a grappling-based fight in the Elkins and Minner fight, and then when I went back and rewatched it, I was like, oh, shit, he's getting hurt really bad, and that's a trend in Elkins fights. So the fact that he hasn't been stopped more inside the distance is a testament to his heart and his, toughness. But I think it was an eventuality that was going to catch up to him as well. And I would be concerned for him in future matchups if the person has good takedown defense and good power.
Yeah, the thing about it is he's got, he's one of those guys where he's like, when he starts bleeding, he starts fighting on another level, and he's kind of very similar to what he did with Derek Minner, where he just, lost the entire fight strategically until he won it, basically, doing the Juliana Pena, doing the rope-a-dope, but without the blocking. That's basically Darren Elkins' game plan for most fights. And that I bet on him in this fight because I thought he was going to be able to, I thought if he was going to be able to last for 5 minutes against Swanson in the second round, the fight might turn. And Darren Elkins is one of those guys every time he's an underdog, he comes through with these miraculous inside the distance bets. So it's one of those things I've talked about before where I'm not hurt by this. I've won a ton of money betting on Elkins. if I have to give 1 unit on the like 12 units I've made on him, it's all good. So with that, Swanson improves to 7-5 in his last 12 fights, and he's turned a profit of 2.24 units on the money line in that stretch. This is one of those fights where basically, I kind of got caught handicapping based on memory. To be honest, I really didn't even remember that Pineda fight. I was just kind of stuck on the Shikadze loss for Swanson, and I was one thing that I will say that you pointed out, how was the fight goes the distance no in this fight plus money? Like that was such an easy bet. And
1.25 units for me. I had to. I was like, come on.
Yeah,
Either way.
Yeah. The story, it's totally win or lose a positive EV play. And the story of this card for me was a lot of bets that I won that I really wish that I doubled down on. And that was one of them. And like with that said, the over in the flyweight division over the past 2 years, 78, 33 and 1 for 21.64 units profit, which means that's like a 70.6 win rate. Basically anything over like minus 210 on the over, you're making money. But this is one of those fights where it's like, I don't care about those trends in featherweight. I care about it's Swanson versus Elkins. This fight is not going the distance. And another one. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we move on?
No, it was 2 violent old bastards that were going to go out there and try and kill each other. That's who they are. And legends of the game. I like both those guys. Featherweight's just a freaking meat grinder of a division. The fact that they've had this kind of longevity is a testament to who they are. Freaking not easy to do, especially at their age. And I'm actually glad the UFC made this kind of matchup as opposed to, putting these guys in with the freaking young lion that's going to just, expose them at this point. I feel like Darren Elkins, needs to have pretty specific matchmaking going forward.
Yeah, I've noticed. I forget what the fight was a couple of weeks ago that we talked about, where it was that lightweight fight with the 240-year-olds. I believe it was Guida, that Guida fight, and I noticed
that Santos.
Yeah, right. That was a 40-year-old lightweight fight. This is guys in their late 30s, pushing 40 at featherweight. But I gotta say, both those fights were pretty, like this fight and that fight were pretty great. And the UFC, I feel like I noticed a trend kind of since Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler 2. I noticed a trend where they're kind of pushing, it's almost kind of like their answer for those like Triller old guy boxing fights, is they're matching up these old veterans, because the old school,
makes perfect sense too.
Yeah.
Just make legacy divisions.
Yeah, and a lot of these fights are great because these guys respect each other a lot, and instead of just having to put young guys over and just getting squashed in the instance of Swanson
getting wrestled and getting, it's like these guys come out there to throw down and have a fight. I think it's fun. I think it just makes perfect sense. Just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that's the way, they're also able to get these guys, kind of let them either move on or get them a new type of contract type of thing, where they're able to, get them fighting the way that when the pandemic started, that kind of was their thing, where they wanted to get them out of their contracts and get them signed to new contracts so that they can just keep rolling them over. So we see guys that are fighting 4 or 5 times a year. So, my point was, I couldn't believe that fight goes the distance no was plus money in this fight. And another one, the next one, the same exact thing. Matus Gamrot defeated Diego Ferreira. Gamrot cashes at minus 225, second round TKO with a pretty bizarre knee to the body. I guess that floating rib he caught. And Ferreira tapped to basically a technical TKO. Gamrot by TKO plus 300, inside the distance plus 210, under 2.5 rounds plus 140. Fight goes to the distance no, cashed at plus 160. What did you have on this one? What did you think, Liam?
Yeah, so this was a massive fight for my slate. I forgot to track a bet on Fight Goes the Distance. No, it was actually the first bet I locked in on this fight because I saw it was at plus money. And again, that's what I was looking at to start targeting this card. So I did have a play on that. That was nice that cashed. I also had 5 units on Mateus Gamrot on the money line tonight at minus 180. I was on Pub Sports Radio today, and I told people to play Mateus Gamrot by sub round 2 and round 3. And so it was a little devastating, to be honestly, that they graded that as a TKO. He had a choke locked in when they graded that as a TKO. And on top of that, the guy quit. So I'm like, he quit and he had a choke and it's a TKO. So this is a brutal game at times when you try and get specific. I would make the plus 3,000 bet again 10 times if you gave me the opportunity. I think CDF slows down in this fight more often than not. He can't make the weight anymore. When he does, he looks like shit. And I thought he looked like shit on the scale. I thought he looked like he was having a hard time in this fight in terms of gas. And I also just thought that Gamrot was doing everything I wanted him to do. He was taking him down, letting him up, so he wasn't getting caught in the grappling transitions. He's like, no, come on, keep working your way back to your feet, get tired. And then he started exploiting more predictable reactions. He got him baited on takedowns, and then he threw the knee to the body, caught him clean. And I heard somebody say on Twitter, and I'm not trying to blow anybody up or whatever. I don't even know who said it, to be honest, but I saw it. It was like, before he was getting injured, I feel like CDF was like close to coming back. I was like, injured? Like, no, guys, he got kneed in the body. He got beat in a fight. That's you don't want that to happen. It's like, that's not an injury. That's damage that somebody did. It's like, imagine somebody said that when they got knocked out, before I got injured in that fight, I was doing really good. It's like, yeah, but Chris Dawkins can't use that one, before Derek Lewis injured me with that big clubbing right hand,
No.
It just doesn't work that way. So I feel like that was just a better, cleaner striking from Gamrot here. And a couple of things that I didn't love defensively was getting touched with the 1-2 at times, but I feel like in the top 10 at lightweight, it's kind of hard to avoid that. I thought he controlled most of the exchanges. This was not an easy fight, especially early, but he did everything well, managed it perfectly, and found the finish opportunistically. I thought he would. So I played live inside the distance. I had money on rounds 2 and rounds 3, and also the rounds 2 and rounds 3 sub prop. So I feel like I had a pretty good read on that fight. And, a lot of people were taking the dog shot. I understand where they're coming from because I have lost a few bets on CDF, but now I feel like I know his game pretty well. And I'm like, if he's got a pressure grappler who's not going to get submitted and who's not afraid to shoot takedowns, I feel like they have an advantage. And even with that 4-inch reach advantage, he wasn't able to keep Gamrot off of him. He was the one absorbing more of the heavy blows.
Yeah. And, usually I would most times, Diego's my guy. And I was surprised to start the fight how good he looked in comparison to how he looked pretty bad against Gillespie. But then as the fight went on, it seemed like I thought maybe he would have learned from the Gillespie fight. But he was just like, it seemed like he was turning up the volume in all the wrong spots. And even when he was hitting him, I don't think he was hitting him that hard. And Gamrot has this style, and that's what goaded him into losing against CombatOdds.ca. He just has this style where he tends to let the fight go where his opponent wants it to go, even though he's kind of better at it than like it. He just has a kind of a, in boxing, you called it, ring generalship. He's really good at leading the fight. Certain guys are. I feel like Diego is good at leading the fight, but wherever the fight was being taken, Gamrot was better at. And I kind of feel like that was also the story in the CombatOdds.ca fight too. And it was just so close that CombatOdds.ca got the coin flip decision. With that said, I also feel like Gamrot, when he was in KSW, is very similar to this too. He plays down to his competition, because there was fights in KSW where he was like a minus 600 favorite, and it was competitive. and that might just be the parody of KSW or whatever, but he's great, but he just kind of has a tendency to be goaded into these weird type of fights where he just kind of fights down to his competition. With that said, I think he's the best European lightweight in the division. And I think a lot of people will say Rafa Fiziev, but what better way to decide it? And if we're going to talk, who to fight next, I think Gamrot versus Fiziev is a great matchup. What do you think about that?
I think that's a phenomenal matchup. That is that's a tricky one, man. I'd have to spend a lot of time thinking about that because I thought I had Fiziev figured out, and he beat the fucking shit out of Brad Riddell, and I was like, okay, nope, got to go back, got to learn more about this guy, better than I thought. So I won't be making the same mistake flying in blind, but I do have a lot of faith in my guy Gamrot. I said before this fight I thought he was going to be top 5, and eventually, I not trying to rush him, but I think that now he's going to be in the top 15, and people are going to know who he is. And a couple impressive finishes now in a row. The UFC is going to really like that. So he's getting pushed up the card. Oh
yeah. With that said, you reminded me. With that said, Gamrot improves to 3-1 since coming into the UFC, and $100 better who's back Gamrot inside the distance since he's come into the UFC in 2020 has turned a profit of $486. So he's been plus money per fight on the inside the distance. So even if you're counting even the CombatOdds.ca decision loss, you still made money flat betting him on the inside the distance. And there was one other thing that I wanted to touch on based on what you reminded me of. What's Fiziev, the European versus European thing, I feel like they might not want to do that because those are kind of besides Makachev, who's Russian, those 3 guys are the only European guys, that Joel Alvarez as well. But I feel like they won't match those 2 guys up because they would want to keep those guys kind of, if they're going up the rankings, they want to have as much separate exposure. So maybe like maybe Brad Riddell and Gamrot, or maybe Gregor Gillespie and Gamrot. But honestly,
I don't want to serve my man Brad Riddell another tough fight like that right off the ripski.
Let's see that's
who's
true.
In this top man. What's Dan Hooker up to?
Yeah,
I'd
but
like to see him defend a top 10 spot.
Hooker is in the same position as Riddell, where it's just like, dude, he's had a rough go, from getting knocked out by Chandler and almost getting his arm ripped off by Makachev.
We shouldn't give it to him. Fuck. Maybe Chandler.
Oh, Gamrot versus Chandler.
I'd fuck with it. Chandler's on to bigger fights, I think.
Yeah, he wants.
Yeah, how do you get into this top 5, man? What do you got to do? Knock out fucking Armand or something? Like, Jesus Christ. The lightweight division is just insane. Who do you fight in there, man? Like, he might not. Honestly, if I was him, if I was his manager, I'd be like, yo, fight somebody outside the top 15 and get another impressive finish. Who cares? That's what I would say.
Yeah, or fight like a washed.
Because right now, what's he gonna do to get into that top 5? It's just not like I don't know who in the top 5 would sign to fight him, and it's all murderers row in like 9 through 15. Like, they have this sneaky way of putting 9 through 15 as like the toughest guys at lightweight right now, bro. I think that those guys are going to in the very near future eclipse the guys who are currently at the top.
Yeah, I feel like Gamrot should take like the Charles Oliveira route and like style on a Nick Lentz type, or let's get Gamrot in there with like Clay Guida or something. Like, let's get him in there with somebody who can go the distance and just get beat up, and so that he could 30-26 somebody, but also maybe potentially finish them, because he made short work of Jeremy Stevens. Let's get more of those guys. And that was Stevens moving up to lightweight too. Maybe. Yeah, let's give Gamrot.
Who's on a hot streak right now, and I don't even mean to be this guy, Bobby Green. That might be a great fight.
Oh, that has split decision written all over it.
It really does, dude. It really does. Or Alexander Hernandez. That's a fun one. I kind of think he would win that one, but That's probably a tough fight. I'd have to look into
Oh,
it.
I got it. I totally got it. And then we'll move on. Thiago Moises.
Yeah, although again, he's my boy and he's been on hard times. But yeah, I mean, it's an appropriate like matchup, but that poor bastard, dude. He got served from the bottom of the barrel too. They're like, hey, you want to fight the guy who never makes weight, who looks like he's a 175 pounder, and then take on freaking who was the other guy he fought? Islam. So just like murderer's row for his last two. Let's give him Gamrot next. I mean, it's just UFC lightweight though. There's just who's an easy fight. I'm not sure. These guys are studs. Grant Dawson.
Yeah, with that said,
that would be a fun one. I'd like him to style on Grant Dawson.
Or
Gamrot.
yeah, or who? Anyways, let's just move on because we can go all day with this. But yeah, anyways, the next one, pretty impressive. And this is another fight. I was just looking at it. I had 3 of these back to back to back, pretty much saved my night. And again, I wish I bet more. Ricky Simón defeats Rafael Assunção. Simón cashes -1 275 by first round KO via punches. Simón TKO plus 333, inside the distance plus 265. The under 2.5 rounds cashed at plus 180. And then again, fight goes the distance. No, I was on plus 160. Besides that, I didn't really have a stake in this fight as far as winner or loser. What did you have on this one, Liam? What did you think?
Yeah, I didn't have any bets on this. I added, like a $5 bet or something on Assunção inside the distance for the culture. And he just looked a little shot here, in my opinion. Don't know that he's going to get another fight with the UFC. Looked visibly slower. Wrestling defense wasn't there, and it used to be. I thought he used to be a more clever counter wrestler. Had very little to offer, I thought, tonight, and yeah, disappointing. I saw, I think it was Boxing Bush from Heavy Hands said, Father Time comes for all of us, and for Rafael Assunção, he was able to evade it for a little longer, like something like that. And it's the truth. He's like 39. He should have probably aged out a while ago at bantamweight, but he clung to it for a while. And, I thought this was – I said before the event that this was a night where a lot of fighters, are you coming or going? And Wonderboy Thompson probably going. This fight probably going. It's just we had to learn. We had to ask some tough questions of some of the older guys on this card. Not every matchup can be Cub Swanson, Darren Elkins. Some of the young guys got to fight the old guys to see who's who. And, this was a tough one for Rafael. I think might be the end of him in the UFC.
Yeah.
2 brutal ones in a row.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't feed. Maybe they still will, though. Actually, I'm surprised that they didn't feed Assunção to Sean O'Malley, because that seems like
about to. I knew you were going to say that.
I'm just looking at the rankings right now, and I'm also shocked that. Well, I guess that'll be fixed as of Monday. Simón will likely. Assunção probably won't be ranked anymore, or maybe he'll slide down to 15th. And no, he'll probably won't be ranked anymore. But if they're not going to give O'Malley another fight, like a ranked fighter next, I can see them letting him style on Assunção. And depending on his contract, obviously, because that was the last of his contract, which usually makes sense for these type of end of the year fights. They just want to rush these type of guys out of there and help move them on. But otherwise, I think O'Malley Assunção makes sense just on somebody declining that O'Malley could style on. But besides that, I don't know. Yeah, Ricky Simón. This guy, I believe. He improves now to 12-2 since 2017. $100 better who has backed him on the money line in that stretch has turned a profit of $458. So if you think about that, 12-2. $458. That means he's been coming in as a monstrous favorite in all of these fights. This is a guy who I think is it's not even that he's underrated. It's just that he hasn't had the matchup. I don't know what it is about him, but I got what it is. Guys are scared to fight him. That's what it is. And we need to see more of Ricky Simón. basically from in 2022 on, because he's a killer, man. And this is one of those fights where it was just pretty much too obvious for me. I wasn't going to take a shot on the dog, and I didn't like the price on Simón, and I thought he could finish him. So yeah, fight goes the distance. No came through. Besides that, do you have anything else to say about this one?
No, this was one of my lowest exposure fights on the card. Ricky Simón at the huge like minus figure was just something I wasn't interested in playing. So I basically put this one to the side. I thought he would win, but I didn't like the price.
Yeah, and again, as far as Assunção goes, probably doesn't have it anymore on the UFC level. And then, speaking of someone who does still have it on the UFC level and might have just outright got robbed tonight, Angela Hill drops another split decision in her career, the fourth split decision in her UFC career, against Amanda Lemos. Lemos cashes at minus 264 on the money line, plus 115 by decision. The over comes through minus 225. Fight goes the distance, yes, minus 182. Liam, what did you have on this one? What did you think?
Yeah, so I had a 7-legger, fight doesn't go the distance, and this was the one that shit out on me. So got it at plus money, but yeah, unfortunate. I think that this was a good fight. I thought that it played out, pretty similar to my expectations. Looked a lot like the Inoue fight, where, early on you see good lands, good damage, good power from the Lemos side. I played Lemos by sub here. I had an untracked 1-unit bet on Angela Hill money line at plus 310. And I didn't track the spot because I just missed the line movement. It had already moved to like plus 270. Didn't want to throw up, a line that wasn't playable for people. But yeah, it was a line that I did get in on myself. I thought that Angela Hill, probably deserved to win the second and third rounds. But admittedly, I was watching it while on live stream. So I'd have to give these fights, an honest rewatch to stand by my score. But yeah, I think that it was a very close fight. Could have definitely gone her way. Feel bad for her that all these splits have gone against her. It's just tough break, tough sport. And I don't know exactly what to make of it. I think that Lemos just had the better power optics. And, I think she probably could have taken it back in round 3. I thought round 2 was probably for Angela Hill watching it live. But, I've seen people after the fact say they thought round 2 was like the swing round. So, I got to watch that with fresh eyes. But, impressive performance from Angela Hill here with her back up against the wall as a big underdog. And, I think that if you backed her by decision, if you backed her on the money line, you probably made a better plus EV bet than if you backed Lemos on the money line. But that being said, maybe this is just a fight that Lemos wins a close decision more often than not. She does have the better power. She did have the finishing upside as well in the matchup. So I think that's important to consider. But yeah, Angela Hill, the toughness and durability as well, because she got rocked and really badly hurt with that front kick to the face early on, and recovered well. I thought she would get clubbed and subbed. I thought she was a liability on the ground, and I thought that Lemos wasn't really able to take advantage. And there it is. I just thought that Angela Hill could have done a little bit more to come on stronger. That it's the problem with her fight style. She just doesn't really let it all go. I thought she would throw a little bit more in combination when she had Lemos backed up, and she clinched a lot and thought that she was winning it optically by pressing against the fence. But, when they separate, Lemos just landed the louder, more impactful looking shot. So it's tough. It's tough. It's a close fight.
Yeah. I'll say this. After she got kicked in the head, honestly, the latter part of that first round is some of the best looking hands of Angela Hill I've seen in a long time. Like the best I've seen it. She looked great. And yeah, I feel like I'm not going to say that was a robbery. That's ridiculous. Like a robbery is when like a clear 30-27 goes the other way. That wasn't a clear 27. And people who say that don't really know what they're talking about. Simple as that. but yeah, Angela Hill is queen of the bad beat. You go back, you look at her. I believe that she, they said on the broadcast she has 4 career split decisions. You go back and you look at that list of split decisions. I remember specifically off the top of my head the Claudia Gadelia fight. She won that fight too. I scored that for Angela Hill. So that's 2 off the top of my head based on what I scored. I thought she won both of those. So. But that being said, not a robbery, because I have a real big threshold of what a robbery is. And in a 3-round fight, it's a clear 30-27 going the other way. And that wasn't what that was. That was a toss up. You could have made a case for either fighter winning. It is what it is. And it also makes, a lot of us are biased because Angela Hill was a public play. So that's why kind of the perception is that she got robbed, but really, Amanda Lemos is a tank, right? And and Angela Hill is super tough. A lot of other girls would have dropped. And with that said, I don't have a problem ever betting in a women's strawweight fight. Fight goes the distance. No, is a good bet. And the under has cashed at a crazy rate. I've talked about this before, like at 37% rate. Since the start of last year. So the under now has gone 20, 36. Yeah, 20 and 36 for 4.77 units profit in the women's strawweight division. So basically, if you're getting any, plus 175 or better on the fight goes the distance no in this division, especially with top 10 or top 15 girls, it's a good bet. It's a positive EV bet, win or lose. So with that said, Lemos improves to 5-1 since her 2017 UFC debut, and a $100 bettor who's backed Lemos on the money line in that stretch has turned a profit of $325. So she's been pretty chalky throughout her career in the UFC. So yeah, anything else you want to say about that one before we move on?
Yeah, I would just say, try and just be reasonable with how you interpret these outcomes, guys. Like, if you can watch the fight and go, that round was close, then that means it's not a robbery. If there's one round that's like that, the only way it's a robbery is if everything is decisive and then they get it wrong. But when it's up in the air and it's left to human judgment, you just can't expect that everybody's going to come out the same way. We all bring in some biases to the cage. Like I come from a wrestling and grappling background. So even unintentionally, sometimes I'll bias myself towards one style, another, somebody I like, somebody I know, somebody who came from a similar background, whatever it is. And so you just got to keep that in mind and try and take out the human error and try and make good bets that have a good chance of winning, and then let the chips fall where they may. Put your money in a good position, hope for the best. And if you make good bets over time, you make money, but you just can't expect to win every one of them. Beats go our way, right? Like if you were a Lemos backer tonight, you got bailed out. Okay, that happens sometimes. But sometimes it's going to go the other way too, right? And that's why you can get caught slipping on a banana peel when you get overconfident on a minus 300 favorite and think there's no way they could lose this fight. They are the better. Yeah, it doesn't matter who's the better fighter. It matters who's better on the night. And Angela Hill, I thought, was better on the night, but Amanda Lemos sneaks out of there with her record still intact.
Yeah, and we talked about this before. MMA and combat sports is basically the only sport where the winner and the loser can be determined instantly, right? It's one of those sports where there's variance on a huge degree. And, we talked about it with Oliveira and Poirier. Just because Oliveira beat Poirier that night, it doesn't mean that he beats him every night. And MMA is one of those sports that it's just variance plays such a huge level. And if it's not your night, it's not your night. And that can be said for the judges too. And do I think Angela Hill won this fight? Yeah, but I'm not going to, I'm not freaking out over it. And that's another thing too to bring up is also just like bankroll responsibility and having discipline and not betting too much. And the positive EV play on this fight, in my opinion, was a small wager on Angela Hill, which I didn't play, and then the fight goes the distance. No, but beyond that, you couldn't play Lemos at that money because this
I
is
had them both and they didn't cash.
yeah, that's what I mean. And Lemos at that price, I feel like I don't know, against Angela Hill. One of the things she said, Angela Hill was the toughest girl that Lemos has fought, and I believe that was true, and we saw it tonight. So yeah, let's move on to the co-main event. Bilal Muhammad comes through, cashes as a plus 195 underdog with the unanimous decision victory over Wonderboy Thompson. Crazy 30-25. I don't think anybody has ever done that to Wonderboy. Muhammad by decision comes through at plus 350. The over 2.5 rounds, which was a very popular play throughout the week. Over 2.5 rounds, cash at minus 275. Fight goes the distance. Yes, cash at minus 225. And Bilal Muhammad comes through. Liam, what did you have? What did you think about this one?
Yeah, so no bets here for me, and I'm pretty glad overall that I didn't end up pulling the trigger on anything here, because I would have leaned Wonderboy pre-fight. I thought this was going to be a winnable spot for him. I didn't love the small cage, but I thought that, based on the style I've seen from him recently, he's been planting his feet a little bit more. He's been throwing more punches, a little more active there. I think a lot of times I've seen Bilal be single leg happy, and I thought that Wonderboy would be able to defend that. And, I thought that Bilal fought a perfect fight. I think we talked about it a little bit pre-fight. If you want to fight Wonderboy, you got to get close to him. You got to prevent him from getting into a rhythm. You got to, establish something early. And Bilal got on him early and never let him off the hook. And I think what he did different than Gilbert was he tried to threaten him with punches and strikes. It wasn't the threat of a submission. And he used the threat of strikes to advance positions as well and get you thinking about one thing, covering up, you occupying hands and using it to advance his position on the ground. And so he was actually able to implement the same game plan more effectively, and probably with a little bit more foresight. I think Gilbert had the broad tools to win the fight, right? He's got good grappling. He's got good wrestling. He's got pretty decent cage cutting. But that was it. It didn't all flow together very well. That's why it was a close, hard-fought win there for Gilbert Burns. This was actually a much more clear route for Bilal Muhammad, and he almost finished him in the first round. Kind of thought that should have been called or could have been called. And, Bilal Muhammad just can't finish a sandwich. Huh? That's what I found myself saying after that. How many fights can the guy have? And this was a fight where he came through so big and just couldn't find that finish. Wonderboy seemed like he was a little bit content to ride it out till, the end of the fight. And I literally saw moments in round 2 where Wonderboy was looking up at the ceiling, reevaluating life. What am I going to do next? Where should I move? He's just thinking about all the things going on in life, holding on to Bilal in the half guard. I'm like, for fuck's sake, this one's over.
Yeah, he didn't look good. And I'll say this, Bilal Muhammad made it look easy against Wonderboy tonight, but I feel like a lot lesser fighters go in there and just get starched by Wonderboy trying to do the same thing. But again, with that said, 30-25, 30-26, unreal performance. But again, with that said, boring fight. And we like it because we're purists, but as for, you go look on Twitter, everyone was shitty on that fight. Just everyone was shitty on people wanted to see Wonderboy's style, and they saw Bilal Muhammad wrestle fuck him for 15 minutes. And again, the small cage, I feel like was something that a lot of people didn't factor in. It was a huge factor. Muhammad took 2 steps forward and he was in the space. He could have got him easily, and Wonderboy had a lot less angles to work with. He had no space, and And with what you said, Bilal Muhammad he's a decision machine. He improves to 11-3 since coming into the UFC in 2016. And if you've bet $100 on him to win by decision in every fight that he's had since then, you're up $1,142. So he's been just a complete decision machine. And then as far as Wonderboy goes, I feel like he should, if that was the end of his contract, which again seems to be kind of the thing that happens with a lot of these end of the year December fight cards, is they kind of just try to rush these guys who are on the last fight of their contract out the door before the end of the calendar year. If that's the case with Wonderboy, Wonderboy should go to Bellator, and we should finally get to see Wonderboy versus Michael Venom Page, because that would be just, it actually might be a staring contest, but even if it is, it'll be in Bellator and it won't be a
and they've never done that before.
yeah. I don't know. It's just, I feel like let's make it happen. And also, I'll say this before we move on to the next fight, to the main event. It's fitting that both Wonderboy and Tyron Woodley took gigantic L's tonight. Kind of an end of an era for both those dudes in their, the peak of their combat sports career, basically coming to an end. One guy coming to a halting screech, and the other guy kind of easing off. So yeah. Anything else you want to say about that one before we move on to the main event?
I don't know if this is crazy, but just thinking about who's next for Wonderboy if he is still with the UFC. There's somebody else that doesn't have many fights left on their deal. Nathan Diaz looking for a fight. What do you think about that one?
Wonderboy against Nate Diaz?
Hey, it's a bounce back for Wonderboy. The UFC gets what they want, which is Nate Diaz leaving on an L potentially. But it's also a fight that Nate wants because it's not a fight where somebody wrestle fucks him to death. It's just an idea. I'm just throwing something out, seeing if it sticks. It's fucking 5:08 in the morning. Maybe I'm crazy. That was just what stood out to me looking at the rankings real quick. I was like, where else does Wonderboy go from here, Who else does he fight that's like really fun?
Wow, that might be so crazy.
Michelle Ferreira?
Yeah, no, but
that would be violent.
Yeah, that might be so crazy it works though. With Nate. Wow, that'd be a good one.
I like it, dude.
That would be that would be really, it would be like the nicest guy ever against the biggest dick in the industry.
Yeah, I think that's nice parody, It'd be nice to see those guys at a press conference.
Yeah, that would be wild. What a just stylistic clash that would be. And like, not even taking anything away, like Nate is really good at what he does, but just he's so unorthodox, and so is Wonderboy. That would be wild. Yeah.
See this? You know what Dana White looks for, Al Mac? It's not a great fight. It's interesting.
Yeah.
We found something interesting.
And then to pivot to Muhammad before we move on, I feel like the go-to is just to run back the Leon Edwards eye poke rematch, right?
Because they're both sitting out in purgatory. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I would also, I'd like to see that CombatOdds fight. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I
feel like Bilal's the kind of guy who would say yes to that fight. I'm looking around going, not a lot of guys want to say yes to that fight. Yeah, Bilal's on a big win streak. That would be the credibility I think Chimaev needs to get that, title shot. Maybe if not the title shot, then the next, like the Colby fight, the next step up, something big.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. The only problem is that I don't know if that's a good matchup just size-wise for Muhammad, because he's
it's a horrible matchup for Bilal. Full disclosure, right? I think what's a good matchup for Bilal?
We just saw it. Yeah, Masvidal.
That's not a good matchup for him either necessarily. I just mean like what's winnable for him in the top, the top of the rankings. Maybe Masvidal.
Yeah, he would never, ever, ever take that fight though. Never.
What about Magny? Magny's ranked up there, and he's a guy that people aren't normally jumping out of bed for his fights, like Bilal Muhammad. Maybe we match those guys up and have a milquetoast welterweight fight to go in the middle of a fight night somewhere in Wichita, or I'm just throwing out ideas again.
Yeah, Chance Wagers has a good point. Bilal Muhammad called out everybody, but he left Chimaev's name out. That is pretty funny. A lot of guys avoiding that, but as you said, I think that would be. And another factor is that a lot of these guys, if they're smart, they take a calculated loss and fight Chimaev now, like the Leech did, because he's going to beat a lot of people and he's going to get a lot better. So, take a calculated loss and lose to him now. Who knows, man?
You can get the rematch when he's the champion in 5 years. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, take the Leon Edwards route. Well, no, never mind. Anyways, we've gone too long on this one. Let's go to the main event, and this is another one of those cards. It seems to be one of these things that happens to me where it's just like I'm back and forth. I'm just on the cusp of making money, losing money, making money, losing money, and then like almost like clockwork, the main event, I just seem to have a good solid read on these higher profile fighters, and it just seems to turn around for me where a lot of these cards I'm losing going into either the co-main or the main, and then it turns around and I'm like, oh, how did I make money tonight? But I did. And Derek Lewis does it again, comes through as a plus 125 underdog, first round KO of Chris Daukaus. Inside the distance plus 187, TKO plus 175, the under 1.5 rounds prop cash at plus 110, and then fight goes the distance no was probably a solid parlay piece. I didn't have any part of that, but yeah, fight goes the distance no comes through at minus 400, a solid parlay piece. There's no way this one was going to go the distance, although Lewis does have insane, I think one of the biggest decision wins ever, which is against Francis Ngannou, where he cashed at like 12-1 odds. But anyways, with that, Lewis improves to 17-6 since his 2014 UFC debut, and $100 better who has backed Lewis on the money line in this stretch has turned a profit of $1,204. Liam, what did you have on this one? What did you think?
Yeah, so pre-fight, nothing in terms of tracked bets. I was up pretty big on the night, so I was, effing around, throwing a little bit on my boy Chris Daukaus inside the distance at the plus 115 tag. I knew somebody was going down here. And honestly, I was just impressed by Derek's performance. He did everything he needed to do. He's the bigger guy in this matchup. He needed to not let Daukaus run away with it early in terms of adding up strikes because Daukaus throws more and he throws a lot. And so he could get up on the strike count pretty fast if you let him. And, Derek kept him away with some like big winging power shots. That's what he's known to do. I actually think that what really got Daukaus like scrambled from his game plan was a right kick to the face that he didn't see coming. And I think that Derek is one of the few guys who's able to do that shit at heavyweight, like bring a kick up to your face. He's really athletic, where a lot of guys are not. They're like, maybe decent skills in one area of the game, but they're actually not good athletes. Derek can do freaky shit, like do jumping switch kicks and throw a high kick right to your head in 1 second at heavyweight. So I think that made the difference. He was just a little more dynamic. I thought Daukaus had a lot of the right ideas coming in. He was touching with the jab. He was trying to hit him with the leg kicks, which is, pretty critical, I think, to beating Derek. And he just got caught, and he's like 30 pounds less than Derek. I was a little confused that the UFC made this matchup for Chris as like his next progression. I thought there was maybe a logical step in between here from the quality of competition he had been facing and the size to going up against a beast, truly, in every sense of the word, like Derek Lewis. So that's why I didn't invest pre-fight here. Daukaus has been a absolute money train for me in the UFC. I bet on him in basically every fight. And in the last couple ones by KO 1 and KO in 1 and 2. And so I've had a pretty decent read. Thought that somebody was going to get finished here. So bet the unders 2.5 though. I bet alternates, and then I also bet the fight doesn't start round 3. I had fight doesn't go the distance in parlays. I had fight doesn't start round 4 and 5 in parlays. So yeah, I thought that this fight was definitely going to end early. I just didn't know who it was going to be, and I think Derek Lewis, he maximizes his win condition more than almost anybody. He's a pretty knockout or bust kind of fighter, and he just seems to hit that condition a lot. So God bless him.
Yeah, I think that Daukaus is two things. I think one, he wanted to try to just fast track this pretty light or this pretty thin heavyweight division, pun intended. And I also think that he saw Derek Lewis look really bad against Cyril Gane and was just like, I can beat this guy. But that being said, Cyril Gane is really good, and he makes really good fighters look really bad. So as soon as I saw,
how about Dontel Mays?
Yeah,
from earlier in this card, dude, I was like, oh, he's a D1 wrestler now. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, I said, just as you said, I was confused that Daukaus took this fight, but he probably honestly, legitimately, as sad as this is, he probably wanted a payday before Christmas. He just quit his job with the police force. So that's probably why he took this fight, is because, the UFC needed a main event. They were going to give him a boatload of money probably for it, and he took it. And this is what happens, and Derek Lewis.
So you want to be a fighter, right?
Yeah. And again, I was so confused. This was the easiest. This was, like as soon as we were done last week, I opened up CombatOdds.ca and I looked at the odds and I was like, Derek Lewis is the underdog against Chris Daukaus. Like, that's the bet. And like, that's it. That's my handicapping. I don't need to look at anything. Derek Lewis should not be the underdog. Basically, against like 2 or 3 guys on earth, Derek Lewis should not be the underdog. And at some point, someone's going to figure this out. And yeah, like you said, Derek Lewis has like the best UFC 4 moveset. Like he just has the best like video game moveset where he can do, the jumping switch kicks and the spinning wheel kick and the high kick and stuff like that. It's just, especially at like 260. And yeah, he wrecked Daukaus easily, and all-time UFC KO king now with 13 knockouts. And yeah, I like I said, to reiterate what I just said, Derek Lewis is a different kind of heavyweight. He's a classic heavyweight. He's more akin to that older generation of UFC fighters, but with the heavyweights, there's a lot of guys that are more one-dimensional. But he's one of the best heavyweights of all time, period. And he's one of those guys that he might go up to fight for the belt to, 3 or 4 times in his career. He's already went for it twice and lost. He's going to be one of those guys that goes and fights for the belt because he might not be able to beat the very best in the division, but he could beat everybody else. Like, he is the rock solid number 2 in the division. You look at his losses, Cyril Gane, look at his UFC losses, at least Cyril Gane, and then the loss
JDS.
JDS, who's
2019 was the scary one to me.
Also
world champion.
A world champion. And then he also lost to Mark Hunt, which is, a legendary striker. And that was in one of the times when, Derek Lewis had a really bad back at a point in his career. And he took a whole bunch of time off and he got surgery and he came back and he rehabbed that back injury. And that's why he's kind of had this renaissance. But in my opinion, unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. And I don't care if he never wins a title. This guy he's one of the best UFC, at least heavyweights of all time, hands down. And with that said, the fight to make is Lewis versus Stipe, because why not? It's just.
I feel you. I mean, it's never been made before, so that definitely makes sense to me. And Chance is asking, is Derek Lewis a gatekeeper? And I kind of thought so. But the more I think about it, I could definitely see what you're saying, Al, in the sense that he could fight for the title again. It's a thin division. I don't know though. Does Derek Lewis? I'm just not sure about the Aspinalls and some of these guys that are on the come up. He's been getting away with this stuff, dude. But I'm telling you, what I saw on tape that made me think Daukaus had a chance is that he's a little bit slower now, and fast punchers have given him problems. Junior Dos Santos gave him problems, and Matt Mitrione, early in the UFC, fucked him up fast and just boxed him. And I think that people that try and wrestle this guy fucking die. That's what happens most of the time. And I think this time, Daukaus tried to strike with him and just got beat, but that could have been anybody's fight. Derek's just a bigger guy, hits harder and more experienced. So makes sense that he wins. I think when he steps into the higher level competition, he is still a little bit slow and a little bit plodding. And I think Ciryl Gane does the same thing twice if they fight again. I would
100%.
bet it again way more the second time.
100%. And I never said he would have a shot. I'm saying apart from, and let's, for full disclosure, he could beat Francis again too. He has a win over Francis Ngannou, who is the champion.
Although, dude, that fight, literally,
I know
nothing happened.
And it's literally one of the worst fights of all time. And it's when Derek Lewis he came back too fast from the back injury, and they were both gassed. That's literally goes down as one of the worst fights of all time. And but Derek Lewis won. It's that simple.
By throwing 7 leg kicks, he beat him.
Yeah, and I'll say this to Chance Wagers, he's not gatekeepers, it kind of has a disrespectful it carries this disrespectful tone. But I say this with all due respect, Derek Lewis is a gatekeeper for the very top of the division. I would say Arlovsky is a gatekeeper for the top 15, right? Derek Lewis is a gatekeeper for the very best. Ciryl Gane, Francis Ngannou, and now I'm saying Stipe. Let's put him in there with Stipe. And you said Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall is one of the only other guys that I would be because it's those guys that are fleet of foot at heavyweight that Derek Lewis has problems with. And Aspinall, a lot more fleet of foot than Chris Daukaus, and
Good point.
This is a stupid question, but those two should probably cross paths. Daukaus and Aspinall. They kind of ruined that now with this. They kind of ruined that now.
They just need to get him one more win. I think give Daukaus 6 months off. Let him decide what weight class he's going to be. Probably heavyweight, but if he's going to be heavyweight, I think maybe let's get back to 242 or something. I think Stipe kind of learned this the hard way too. You just don't want to be too undersized against these bigger heavyweights. I think it's a problem. And I thought that Stipe against Francis in the second fight, it was so evident the weight difference. Chance says Aspinall would spark Daukaus. I could actually see that too. So let's get my boy Daukaus some low level heavyweights again to piece up. I was having fun when he was doing that.
Let's get him in there with Blagnoy Ivanov.
Yep, works for me.
Actually, that guy is a lot tougher than people give him credit for. I believe he went the distance with Derek Lewis. So,
dude, I believe he got stabbed in the heart and kept living. So,
no, in the stomach.
In the stomach. Yeah, you're right.
He has
got the scar to prove it.
Actually, I seen that dude fight live once. That guy is actually a lot better than we give him credit for. I don't think we've seen him since 2019 though. I don't even know if he's still in the rankings. But anyways,
he is 13.
I can't remember. I think the last time he fought might have been Derek Lewis. Anyways, so we go from. I guess that's a wrap for 2021 as far as the UFC goes. Just an inch, and we're going from heavyweight from heavyweight to wrap up 2021 to the heavyweights to kick off 2022 with Ngannou and Cyril Gane. And, you know, we already touched on that, so we're not going to go over it again, but we will go over is the absolute freak show, disappointing, just complete. It's a freak show. That's all we can call it, was the freak show that went on tonight in a fight that was, you know, this fight was somehow worse than the first fight as far as just action goes. Jake Paul defeats Tyron Woodley, comes through as a minus 200 betting favorite with a 6-round vicious KO. If you were just a strict boxing fan, it's one of the great, like one of the nicest KOs of 2021. So yeah, Paul cashes plus 180 inside the distance, 2-1 odds by TKO, under 6.5 rounds, cashes at plus 150. Fight goes the distance, no, cashes at plus 120. Real quick, give me your thoughts. I know that you only saw a little bit of it, but give me your thoughts about one of the, you know, a dark day in mixed martial arts for Tyron Woodley getting just completely statued by Jake Paul, the YouTuber.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that he was going to get statued, but I did think that he was going to lose the fight convincingly again. You know, and I bet Jake the first time. I've had a really good read on Jake Paul fights, honestly, and that's no claim to fame, but it is the truth. I bet him in his last fight. I told everybody that would listen to me, please don't bet Ben Askren against this guy. He's going to get finished. Man, it's just not I don't think it really reflects anything about MMA, to be honest with you. I think these are guys who, with all due respect, are looking for money and opportunity on the way out of their career. And, you know, it's a dangerous game. And I think that that's what Tyron Woodley learned tonight. I think he thought he could take this fight, wrap him up, you know, push him around a little bit, make it a closer fight, save face a little bit, maybe win, but ultimately just get another paycheck out of it. And instead, now he gets a ton of embarrassment. So I feel for the guy, you know, put it all on the line. This is what combat sports is. But Chael Sonnen says it best. You know, when you walk into a fight, everything you have, you bring it with you. And, you know, that means if you're the UFC champion, you bring it with you. And tough for a UFC champion to get knocked out by a kid who's roided up and been doing boxing 4 years. But it's like, that's what happens, you know, when old men take fights with young guys with a lot of money who don't have anything else to do and don't have anything else to lose. So I just felt like this was a disaster for Tyron Woodley. You know, even if you try to take up pure boxing as a fucking 37 or 38-year-old, it's just a you know, failure to launch. You know, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and I didn't mean like that it reflected mixed martial arts as a sport. I just meant like, you know, the fans. And, you know, Woodley was such a, you know, a beloved character, at least with like, you know, the older diehard MMA fans, when he was kind of getting dicked around a lot by the UFC when he was champ and he waited out fights and stuff like that, waited for the fight that he wanted. So he kind of got, you know, he was, especially with like Mama Woodley and stuff like that, he was just like a beloved character in just like the MMA sphere. And of course, I don't mean that it reflects badly on MMA. He might never fight MMA again. But yeah, the thing about it is this fight was just, it was just brutal. Like, I think it might have had to do with the 12-day factor, but you know, you put two guys in there who have, you know, I know Jake Paul has been training boxing professionally for quite a while, but I feel like just his wrestling tendencies come out in these big high level contests where it's just every single time they miss a punch, they go for the underhooks. And the clinching in this fight was just terrible. And it was a boring fight. And like, I'll just reiterate exactly what we were talking about before we went on the air. Similar to like Sergio Pettis Horiguchi, with Pettis just turning the fight around with one swift punch. You know, Jake Paul turned the public opinion around with that one punch on Tyron Tyron Woodley, because this fight was terrible. It was unwatchable. And the referee was like, come on, guys, come on, y'all. The commentators, Al Bernstein was like, this is pretty tough to watch. He said that on the pay-per-view that people paid for. And then everything that I just said, we will all forget about, because Jake Paul viciously KO'd Tyron Woodley and turned all public opinion around. And, I was boringly scrolling through Twitter. I just glanced over at my computer while watching the fight, and I saw Luke Thomas tweeted, Jake Paul viciously KOs Tyron Woodley. And I thought,
retweeted it.
I thought, this is a poor attempt at Luke making a joke. And because he was there, so he must have, I was watching the pay-per-views, so there was no delay, and I was just like, that has to be a joke. And no, it wasn't a joke, and just unreal. And the thing that I got to say is, Jake Paul timed it out. He fainted to the body. He fainted to the body again, and then went up high. And then he went up high, and Woodley sees the punch coming, covers up, but then he drops his elbow, because I guess that he was worried that Paul was going to go for the body again. And he drops his elbow at the last second. And I've never seen worse technique in the midst of a fight. That he was up. I believe he was up, and it was a terrible fight to score, but I thought he was up. And just terrible technique, dropping his elbow, and just absolutely unbelievable. He statued him, and both fighters seemed off. It was a weird fight. The energy was dull. And I even tweeted out, is the era of freak show fights over? Because this is deflating to watch. Nope. It's not
back
over.
on. It's back.
Yeah.
He literally was like, it's off, boys. I'm sorry. All right, boys, we're back on. Crazy, dude. Crazy.
I'm not fucking leaving.
That's what the game is, man. That's what the game is. It can all turn on a dime. Public perception, it just changes fast, man. And Jake Paul, it was, he can't knock anybody out who's a real fighter. He can only knock out a basketball player or a YouTuber or this. They're going to say it until he knocks out a Tommy Fury or somebody like this. I don't know that he will, but I just feel like he's going to keep taking stiffer challenges. And I don't know, man, from everything I've seen, he does get a little bit better fight over fight. And he works on his skills, it's not like he comes in these fights and just tries to power punch somebody with a barrage of punch. He has boxing skill, and that's enough to beat a bunch of guys from MMA, I hate to say. But that being said, if we could send some of our better representatives over, I'd be down for that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, he's got a cool little. He's got a very smart gimmick though right now, where he's bringing people over from a sport that he has an advantage in, and it's just he's gonna make him. Now he has a win over a UFC champion, a knockout win, a stunning knockout, highlight reel knockout win over a UFC champion. And really pitchly, we'll try to wrap this up because we've been going too long here. But really quickly, did you see the dude wipes thing with the pitch
on Tyron Woodley's shorts?
Yeah, and dude, I tweeted out, at least dude wipes had a good night, because they, everyone's gonna see that. And then they tweeted at me, hey, Tyron's our guy, but sometimes shit happens. And they must have. It's a
cold there, bro.
So cold. But really quickly, I want to talk about this because this is the meat of the issue. Next fight for Jake Paul, and this is one that a lot of people aren't talking about. Anderson Silva, right? I feel like that would be interesting because I think Jake Paul would potentially take Anderson Silva lightly. He would go out there and try to do the same thing that he did to Woodley. And I feel like Anderson Silva would go out there and do the same thing to Jake Paul that he did to Tito Ortiz. Do
you think that Jake would take that fight?
I think that
Anderson's the same size as him, which he has not proven that he will take a fight with somebody his size yet.
But he's old, right? He's like 47 or 46 or 47 years old.
Yeah, but I feel like he would take on Connor before he would take on Anderson. Do you know what I mean? Like he wants to take somebody who's small.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
feel like I like where your head's at, because Anderson, again, one of our better representatives, somebody who's not going to make a complete fool of us, could get knocked out, did get knocked out by Uriah Hall on the way out of the UFC, but I think that this is possible. I think this is a winnable fight for both guys. That's what you're kind of looking for in matchmaking. So that's fun.
Yeah, and then let's just start star scoping here, because Nate Diaz was at this event. He was shown on the Showtime broadcast, which is pretty odd for a UFC contracted fighter to be shown on a Showtime broadcast. And Nate Diaz was with his buddy Chris Avila, who was on the undercard, kind of Jake Paul's party, trying to create something. These guys have been circling each other a little bit here, with Nate being at the event and walking out before the fight was over. And Nate has one fight left on his contract. It looks like he's trying to rush out of it with the fight with Dustin. So I feel like Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul.
Be Dustin? I don't know, man. It seems like Dana was trying to throw fucking cold water on that, which is weird. But
it's going to be somebody. But I'm just saying, I feel like Jake Paul versus Nate is. I think that's a fight that could happen. What do you think about that? Who would you favor in that fight?
Dude, I'd have to think about it to give like a fair assessment. Everybody give me, if I say something stupid right now, just bear in mind it's 5:37 Eastern. But that being said, man, initially I'd have to look at the height and reach. I would think it favors Jake pretty significantly, and I would have to favor him probably slightly. But I do think Nate could definitely make it more competitive than Tyron. Nate will go out there and throw. He won't give a fuck. He will slap him around a little bit. I'd just be worried because Nate, he kind of has a brick for a head, but he's also been hit a lot, and Masvidal was kind of fucking him up, outboxing him a little bit.
Yeah,
I think that could be a problem, and I wouldn't want to see one of my guys get viciously KO'd. That would be bad.
Could you imagine if Nate Diaz got statued by Jake Paul? Dude,
unfortunately, yes.
Okay, so really quickly, this is this is all leading towards Jake Paul versus Conor, right? That's what's happening here, right? Jake, and I talked about this with Bleed when we had McGregor Poirier 2. It was actually the third fight when McGregor went heel. McGregor won't even wear his crypto.com shirt for the ceremonial weigh-ins. And I don't think he's going to wait around. This is a guy who's trying to become a billionaire. I think he's turning down any offer that the UFC gives him for an extension on a contract. And for him to go into like his late 30s and early 40s, he's got to be thinking to be doing something promotion-wise for himself. And, McGregor versus Jake Paul, as sad as this is, that fight would be
the business.
One of the biggest pay-per-view sporting events of all time, for better or for worse, give or take.
Dude, I completely agree with you. I think I would struggle to think of a fight involving a mixed martial arts athlete that would be bigger. Like Mayweather McGregor, I feel like would be a similar size, because you have to understand that this guy, Jake Paul, just has a reach outside of combat sports that we don't really understand. Like we think of like what could bring in a casual fight fan, a big star. He has a pre-built audience that's massive. Conor McGregor, pre-built audience that's massive that won't miss the fight. It's just like those are two unique audiences in some ways as well. Not every Jake Paul fan watches MMA, but every MMA fan knows who Conor McGregor is and has to watch that fight. So you have all of MMA involved. And then Jake Paul is like the greatest troll in the history of the MMA world. I don't know, man. I think that's a massive fight. And I hate to say that because, I like Conor. I wish my boy was still in real fights. But if he's going to be taking this kind of fight for money, who could blame him, man? Like most people will never get that opportunity.
Oh, yeah. And we can all say like, oh, that's dumb. What does this sport come to? Blah, 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 blah. This is what I'll say about tonight's event. You look at the Amalie Arena, 18,000 people. like Jake Paul said, that's bigger than MSG when they have an event like this. 18,000 people. You look at that crowd, I bet you there's probably 75% of those people. That's the first boxing event they ever went to, right? So you're bringing a whole new audience to boxing.
First boxing event I ever went to, Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley won in Cleveland.
Right.
There you go.
That's what I mean. So he's, as much as we want to poo-poo on this, I bought the pay-per-view. I'm invested in making content about stuff like this because it sells. You know what I mean? The website, when I make content about Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley, or just Jake Paul, Ben Askren, or Jake Paul, anybody, eyeballs go to it, and they filter off into what we're doing beyond that. When, you can turn a Jake Paul fan into a Ricky Simón fan in no time. So that's what it comes down to. So yeah, honestly, as ridiculous as it is, and I feel like we might have talked about it on air, but it might have been off air, but I was saying I think they might be gunning for doing McGregor Chimaev, but now after seeing this changes everything, right? With Jake Paul having this huge knockout, because remember, McGregor was eyeing that Pacquiao fight outside of the UFC if he was going to get through Poirier, and it went badly, and then he went for the third fight. Now he's eyeing something outside of the UFC. He's not going to re-sign with the UFC. I can see him going the Khabib route and creating his own promotion, 12 FC or something. So yeah, literally the sky is the limit. So that oh my God, unfortunately, that is how we're going to wrap up 2021. We still have what is it? There's the Fury FC tomorrow afternoon, right? And then we got Octagon 30 on December 30th, and then we got Ryzen 33 on New Year's Eve. But UFC and Bellator has wrapped up, so I'm surprised. Another plus money, like another plus unit year for me, but the gains not really what I was hoping for. I went 446 and 511 for plus 8.8 units in 2021. Not the best. So hopefully going to try to build on that so I'm 930 and 891 for plus 23.58 units. So my 2020 was a lot better. 15 units, just because I'm usually betting just straight 1 unit plays. So I had 15 units last year, only 8 this year. So 2022, we're going to try to, go keep building, keep having that exponential growth rather than just keeping my head above water. And these post shows, I definitely enjoy doing them with you. So yeah, any parting words before we kick the can for 2021?
Absolutely, man. It turned out to be a pretty good year for me. I had a bad year. I started tracking my bets midway through last year. And so I ended off the year, positive on my straight bets, but negative overall on my tracked wagers. And to be honest with you, Al, at the time I knew virtually nothing about betting on MMA. I didn't know very much about betting in general. And that's what I've had to learn on the job. I came in with a bunch of knowledge about the sport, and I think they call it the green tree fallacy. The green lumber fallacy. That's what I was dealing with, which is like, I know something about MMA, so therefore I can make money betting on it. And that's not quite how it works. And I think over time, reading books, learning from very smart people in the game, yourself included, I've just picked up on things, betting trends, what wins fights, what doesn't win fights, what could be a cause for concern for a big favorite, this kind of thing. And so at a certain point, even this year, I started off the year not on a great note, but I've learned and tried to keep refining my process every week and keeping the things that work and that make me money and trying to focus on those and take out the things that have cost me money and that I'm not, doing well with. And I ended up, plus 41 units on the year for an 8% ROI. And I was down 45 units at one point this year. So had a very good end to this year. And even had a couple tough events right at the end of the year that tried to scrape back some of my profit. And the last 2 events we go out with, +8, +10 units type of deal last 2 weeks. So very happy about that, man. Finished out strong and ready to get going again in 2022 with a lot of lessons learned and ready to keep attacking the bookies. They better come correct, because I will.
Yeah, nice, man. Yeah, like me and you, we definitely have different, like I'm kind of a high volume but low stakes, or you're probably, higher volume. Yeah, like you kind of got the higher volume, higher stakes. I got lower volume, lower stakes. I'm betting like literally sometimes like 25 bets a night, because I believe, just like you, I don't bet any other sport. I only bet combat sports now. I used to bet other stuff, but I don't anymore. So I make the Saturdays count, because I'll go in with a huge card. And unlike you, as far as training, I've trained boxing and stuff like that. I've never really been into a fight besides like a hockey fight. But with that said, I still know if someone's going to punch you in the head, not to put your hands down at the last second and let yourself get punched in the temple and knocked out for, the MMA world to remember and be embarrassed for forever. So with that said, it's pretty depressing that we're going to end 2021 on that. But,
I know, poor bastard, dude. It could have been Derek Lewis, it could have been Derek Lewis, but instead it's Jake Paul that gets the last laugh.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
What a sport. What a circus, man. Combat sports. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a freak show. Even when we're talking about the fights in the cage, it's a complete freak show. So, with that being said, let's wrap it up for 2021. I had like a really good transition, and I totally just blanked on it right as I was gonna say it. Let's end the freak show.
That hour of the morning, my man. It's that hour.
It's almost 6 in the morning, but that's what it was gonna be. We can only go up from here, right? That's what it is. We got Jake Paul knocking out a former UFC champion. We can only go up from here. So hopefully Nate or Connor or somebody, brings us some joy in 2022 and takes care of this guy, because now we're invested, which is sad, right? Now we're invested. We need to see the big blow off.
That get back.
Yes, we need the get back.
Brunson was saying he needed to show him some love, or whatever he said to him. He wants to get his hands on him. Dude, I said Derek Brunson, round 1 body kick TKO. I don't care. I don't care if we don't get it on paper. We need it for the moral victory. Just put him down. We need the visual. We need a big man standing on top of him, telling him what's up. I like Derek Brunson to go in there and get it done.
Why don't we get Derek Lewis in there?
Because Jake Paul will never sign that fight.
That's the thing, is you need to get them to be making enough money so that one time, what'll happen is one time, like, Dana will turn from the whole like line of, Jake Paul's he's a loser. This kid's a freak. He's fighting old guys and basketball players. And then, the money will get more and more valuable to where Dana will suddenly be like, yeah, we're thinking about it. And then
Jake Paul's one of the best fighters on earth. And if you don't believe that, it's because you're not paying attention. Once he signs him, he's the best guy. It's crazy, dude.
He beat a 2-time UFC champion. All right.
Did you see what he did to Tyron Woodley? This guy's the future of the sport.
We just need to add zeros, and then we'll get there. Okay, but hopefully we get there in 2022, where this guy, we end up getting the get back and the blow off, because we're all invested now. So with that, let's wrap it up. Hit us up on Twitter. The handles are there on the bottom. Like, subscribe to video, sign up to the channel, my channel, Liam's channel, all that good stuff. And man, thanks a lot for doing this. And good morning, good evening. See you next year. Talk to you later, guys.